You are standing in Rome. It is 50 BC. You are wealthy. You own land, slaves, grain stores, a small fleet of merchant ships. You are, by any reasonable measure, rich. And you cannot pay your debts. Not because you spent too much, not because your business failed, but because the thing you need right now, actual coins, actual metal, is sitting somewhere else. Tied up in a harvest that hasn't come in yet, locked in a deal that closes next month, and the man you owe wants his money today. So what do? You call in a favor. Welcome to Roman finance, where trust was the currency, reputation was the collateral, and the entire economic engine of the ancient world's most powerful empire ran on something that doesn't exist on any balance sheet. Here is the uncomfortable truth this video is going to land on. The Romans built a financial system that was, in several ways, more sophisticated than anything that would exist in Europe for the next 1,000 years. Without banks, without paper money, without interest rates set by a central authority. They did it anyway. And understanding how tells you something strange and unsettling about money itself, about what it actually is, and about how fragile the systems we've built on top of it really are. Rome starts as a farming community. Small, agrarian, unremarkable. Their economy is what historians call a subsistence economy, a technical way of saying you grow what you eat what you grow, and there isn't much left over. Barter exists, but barter is clunky. You have grain. I have olive oil. I don't want grain right now. I want timber. And the timber guy wants something you don't have. Every transaction becomes a puzzle requiring a perfect double coincidence of wants, which almost never happens. This is the oldest problem in economics. And the solution Rome reaches isn't coins. Not yet. It's cattle. For a surprisingly long time, the Roman unit of value is the cow. The Latin word for money, pecunia, comes from pecus, meaning cattle. Romans are literally pricing things in cows. It's absurd by modern standards. Cows die. You can't carry one in your pocket. But here's what cows have that grain doesn't. They're scarce, visible, hard to fake, and everyone agrees on their value, which is exactly what money needs to be. Coins arrive around the 4th century BC, and the shift is enormous, not just economically, psychologically, because a coin does something a cow cannot. It abstracts value. You are no longer exchanging grain for timber. You are exchanging a piece of metal that represents grain for a piece of metal that will eventually become timber. The metal itself means nothing. What matters is the agreement. The Romans understood this almost immediately and exploited it almost immediately. The silver denarius arrives in the late 3rd century BC, right as Rome is fighting Carthage. Small, portable, universally recognizable across thousands of miles of trade routes. For roughly 3 centuries, the denarius is one of the most stable currencies in the ancient world. And then Rome starts cheating. Here's the uncomfortable math. Running an empire is expensive. The legions don't march for free. The grain doles don't distribute themselves. The roads, the aqueducts, the bureaucracy, the border fortifications, all of it costs money. And Rome has a chronic revenue problem. So emperors do what governments always do when they can't collect enough and can't stop spending. They debase the currency. You take a silver coin, you melt it down, you mix in copper. You mint more coins from the same amount of silver. You've just increased the money supply without increasing actual wealth. In the reign of Nero, around 64 AD, the denarius is roughly 90% silver. By the reign of Gallienus 2 centuries later, it is 2% silver. 2%. The coin is essentially copper with a silver wash, a thin, deceptive coating of respectability over a core of worthless metal. Prices rise. People hoard good coins and spend bad ones. Soldiers start demanding payment in goods because the coins aren't worth anything. The monetary economy quietly reverts to barter in certain sectors. The Roman economy doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes, slowly, over generations. Like a coin losing its silver content, percentage point by percentage point, until one day you hold it up to the light and realize there's nothing left. But even while this is happening, Even while the coins are deteriorating, Romans are conducting sophisticated finance using something entirely different, something invisible. The system is called the obligatio, the obligation, and it is the beating heart of Roman commercial life. You need money, now. You go to someone who has it, and in Rome, that someone is almost certainly not a bank, because banks as we understand them don't really exist. There are money changers who can hold deposits, but they are not creating credit. What you're looking for is a creditor, a wealthy individual, a patron, a friend with resources. And the transaction you enter into is personal, bilateral, and bound not just by contract, but by something far more powerful in Roman society: shame. The Roman concept of fides, faithfulness, trustworthiness, is not a soft virtue. It is a social currency with real economic force. A man who defaults doesn't just lose money. He loses standing. He loses his entire network. In a world where your ability to borrow tomorrow depends entirely on whether you paid back yesterday, reputation is collateral in the most literal sense. Cicero's letters, and we have hundreds of them, read like a modern hedge fund manager's communications. He is constantly managing cash flow, moving money between properties, timing repayments, negotiating terms. In one letter, he is fretting about needing a large sum by a specific date, asking a friend if he can route money through a mutual contact to make the timing work. This is not primitive. This is sophisticated financial management conducted entirely through social relationships. And then there's the thing Romans figured out that feels almost modern: the societas, a legal partnership structure in which multiple parties pool resources for a commercial venture, share the risks, divide the profits. Roman trading ventures, shipping grain from Egypt, importing goods from the East, financing military contracts, frequently operate through these structures. There are also publicani, private contractors who bid on state contracts, building roads, supplying armies, collecting taxes. These organizations look in certain ways like early corporations: multiple investors, distributed risk, branch operations across the empire. The tax farmers pay the Roman state upfront for the right to collect taxes in a province. They then collect those taxes and keep the difference. Rome essentially invents deficit-financed warfare, public works contracting, and supply chain finance without ever developing formal banking. It works because everything is underwritten by land. Roman wealth at its foundation is agrarian. Land is the ultimate collateral, the thing that cannot be debased, cannot be faked, cannot be created by an emperor melting down coins, until that stops being true too. Because here is what the Roman system cannot survive: concentration. By the late Republic, Roman land is increasingly owned by very few people. The vast estates swallow the small farms. The small farmers flow into the cities. They lose their place in the obligation networks that made the financial system function. The credit networks that kept commerce moving relied on a reasonably distributed ownership class. When wealth concentrates too far, the system loses its distributed resilience. The currency debasement accelerates, the tax base erodes. By the 3rd century AD, Rome is caught in a feedback loop: a government spending more than it earns, a currency losing value faster than wages can adjust, a trade network fragmenting as regional economies lose faith in central institutions. It doesn't fall in a day. It falls gradually, then suddenly, then in a way that everyone in retrospect could see was inevitable, and almost no one saw coming. So why does any of this matter right now? Because everything the Romans used, trust networks, reputation as collateral, obligation-based credit, fiat currency backed by nothing but collective agreement, we still use, just with better branding. Your credit score is your fides. Your banking system is a vast network of mutual obligation. The dollar in your pocket has 2% more silver than a 3rd century denarius, which is to say, none. It is a promise, a very carefully maintained promise, but a promise. The Romans figured out that complex economies don't require formal institutions, they require trust. and they discovered, slowly and expensively, that trust is not a renewable resource, that once it begins to erode, the institutions built on top of it don't stabilize it. They accelerate the erosion. What they never solved, what they arguably died not having solved, is what happens when the people at the top of the obligation network stop being bound by the same rules as everyone else, when the emperor can debase the coin and call it monetary policy, when the system designed to distribute risk starts concentrating it instead. They never solved it. We haven't either. The denarius took about 200 years to go from 90% silver to 2%. The dollar has been the world's reserve currency for about 80. I'm not saying anything. I'm just noting the timeline.